Hey besties, it's Juju, KP and TT. Tools down, time to chat work, life, well-being and relationships.
And you're listening to Let's Take It Offline. Welcome to the Take It Offline podcast. We're excited to be here and ready to share with all our listeners. We're three young professionals in our late 20s and 30s and currently working at some of the largest companies in the world whilst navigating life in all its aspects. On this podcast, we'll be looking to talk all things top of mind for young professionals these days, or yo pros, from career, well-being, finance, dating, ambition, and most importantly, having fun whilst doing all of this.
Hey besties, welcome back to the Let's Take It Offline podcast. This week we have a very fun and exciting topic to talk about, modern love. And especially dating as a yo pro, as a young professional, right?
Isn't that a yogurt brand?
Yeah, it is as well.
That is why we're not
sponsored,
like a millennial soon.
But before we start, how is everyone? How was the week?
I had an interesting week. I tried hypnotherapy.
Oh.
We'll have to do a whole episode about it because I can waffle on and on. But
was it good?
Impartial.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't really know if it works. Mm-hmm. And I'm still somewhat skeptical.
Yeah.
But I have to continue to listen to the recording bit.
Yeah.
To see if it works. But anyway, I'll give you an update in a couple of episodes' time to see how I feel about it.
Yeah. KP.
My week pretty much is actually a good lead into the topic this week, is that I have had one of those weeks at work where it's just been all consuming. It's been absolutely all consuming, and it actually makes it hard for me to have my personal time to look and think about dating. And I think that's one of the things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So it's been one of those weeks for me.
TT, we haven't forgotten about you.
It has actually been a pretty good week for me. I feel like it's a massive calm down from the week before where I had so many events and, trying to close deals and things like that. So this week I managed to get out to surf 3 days, 3 mornings. I played tennis twice. So yeah, I'm feeling really great and just a little bit hungover from Friday night. But other than that, good as gold.
I must be the only old one. I didn't go out or do anything last night.
Really shows your age, Jules.
I know. Yeah. I just wanted to do nothing.
That's perfectly fine. One of those guilty pleasure evenings.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
I didn't have fried chicken though. I had pizza and pasta and said, yum.
That sounds good.
Yum. But hey, today we're here to talk about modern love and dating. So before we start, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this term, but did you know that, so KP and I were sinks, right?
Sinks. I love that.
Single income, no kids. And Jules, you might be a DINK.
I'm a DINK because it's double income, no kids.
Yeah, so for us, it's about...
Sing a DINK?
No, I think it's, the dating journey as a yo pro, when you're like late 20s to early 30s, maybe into your mid 30s or even beyond, right? Depending on where you're at with your life journey and what you prioritize. But it's all about converting yourself from a sink to a DINK. And today we want to chat about that process and why do we even want to date? Like, some people might argue that it's better to just be myself and, just rolling solo and just, that's how you feel fulfilled and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
But some people might just want to be part of a couple and, sharing some of that financial burdens as well as having that emotional support as well. So we'll touch on why this is such an important topic in our podcast. And then we also want to talk about balance as well between work and life and health, about, making sure, as KP say, even if you're very busy with work, you still have that time to prioritize things that you think are important in your life. And a topic that I'm really passionate about at the moment is, tapping into your feminine energy as well, because as corporate career people, we can be very masculine. We can be, go-getters. But when you're in a relationship, you might want to look at how you move that energy more into a feminine, soft energy. And yeah, just be more in the flow, more in the moment.
I've got a book I can recommend as well.
Of course
but we can talk about what book later.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, but most importantly, I think we all agree that love for yourself above all else is very important. And I think it's important, it's critical for us to understand that, you don't need another person to complete you. It's optional. It's a lifestyle choice. But it's also a bit of a fun journey.
Yeah, I think that is such a relatable last comment because finding someone, you yourself, I think there's a sense of fulfillment that you need to have to be comfortable in who you are as yourself. You don't necessarily need someone to complete you. But it's good to also find someone that will complement you and help you achieve what you're looking to get out of life. So someone who like raises you up rather than trying to like fix you by completing you. Yeah.
You raise me up.
No.
That's the feeling.
But okay, you guys are going to laugh at me for this, but one of the TikToks that I saw, of course, I find TikTok
how many hours do you spend on TikTok education?
It's a channel called Therapy Talk, right?
No, it is a hashtag. But one of the videos I saw on TikTok was about this, right? Like, it's all about finding someone who's going to put wind in your sail, because life is already hard enough. So, it's good to find someone who gets you, who can support you, and who makes your life a bit easier. So.
And I see and hear people say, hey, this is my other half. I hate that term.
Really?
Yeah.
What about significant other?
Significant other is okay, but my other half.
You're a whole,
You're
right?
a whole. You don't need someone to complete you. And that's how I think. So it irks me when people say or introduce their partner as their other half.
Or their better half.
Or you're like, why?
Yeah, why? They're not better than me.
Yeah, why doubt yourself, or why put yourself down in that sense without even realizing it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get into that.
Yeah, I think we've established a pretty good base for this episode, and we understand that, again, dating is a choice, and finding someone is hopefully going to make your life a lot easier, a lot better, but doesn't mean that you need someone, right? You shouldn't be coming from that needy space. But having said that, should we share a bit about our journey as to dating relationships?
Yeah, look, I'll go first purely because I'm the taken one, so I'll get it out of the way, and we can talk about the singles because it's way more fun and interesting stories. Because once you get dating, or once you actually are in a relationship, your life kind of settles a lot more than when you are obviously lining up dates night after night, right? So I've been with my partner for close to 2 years. We actually met on Hinge, and I don't know if it's really changed significantly since I was on Hinge, but Hinge was always more if I want a relationship, I'll go on Hinge. If I wanted, just maybe a one night stand, I might go on Tinder. So I don't know if that's changed for you.
I think it's pretty similar, but we should caveat that like Tinder is the wholesome app for the gays, though.
Yeah,
has it turned into okay, great?
No, I also feel like a lot of people met through Tinder. Like, you remember KP, one of our yoga teachers?
Yeah.
She met her now fiance in London via Tinder, right?
Yeah, I think maybe different countries use like one app in a different way than we do here. So maybe in London or in the UK, Tinder is the app, but here it's typically for hookups.
And I think, the apps is certainly a great way to meet people outside of your circle.
Yeah.
You're not going to really date your friends, and you may or may not date people from work. But who else are you going to date unless you go up to a guy at a random bar? And I think people have also lost a little bit of their confidence doing that now because of COVID and because of the apps.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm happy that, and funnily, I actually met my partner during COVID, which we thought our dating would be, I guess, interesting in the sense that we had to kind of work out where we needed to go and be really planned. You know, because all the restaurants you had to book. Otherwise you couldn't get in.
That's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah. Whereas back in the day, you could just say, hey, let's meet at this bar.
Yeah.
And we'll just maybe walk to this other restaurant later if we're vibing.
The amount of dates that were happening in parks, like
my
walking
goodness.
dates, running dates, so random.
Or like tennis
Picnic
dates,
dates, yeah.
picnic dates,
Golf
golf
dates,
dates.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not about that. I'm about liquid courage, especially on a first date. I can't do a date around a park. I can't do a date, a golf. I think on the first date, you need to kind of impress each other, but you also need to loosen up a little bit. And I think that's why a drink is always an easy option, because that's when you get to know each other. And then you go, hey, if we go on a second date, happy days. If not, whatever, right? You move on.
I feel like it feels too much like an interview if it's over coffee.
Coffee on a Sunday with the sun out, and it's like I see all your flaws as well.
I'd rather go out and have fun with my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, KP, what about you?
Oh, where should I start? Like, I'd say that, okay, well, I've been single for a couple of years now. And if I look back, when I think the last serious relationship I had this really romanticized view in my mind around how the relationship was going to be. And I think that I overinvested too much of myself into the relationship and the person, because of like I wanted them to be the one, and a vision of how I viewed it to be a successful relationship. And after leaving that, I realized how much of my own self-discovery that I had neglected. So much of my own fulfillment that was unfulfilled whilst I was in that relationship. And so a lot of the last the years coming out of that, I actually spent a lot of time really learning and about myself, loving myself more, and understanding my likes and dislikes, and coming, I guess, more into who I am now. Like, I'd say I'm very different to who I was 4 years ago, when I was still at that time. And now I feel like, because I understand myself better, that I'm really out there to find someone that's not going to be completing me, but more complementing me and being the person who is able to lift me up and help me achieve what I want to achieve in life and the relationship.
And you supporting them as well.
Exactly. There was a lot of growing up, and I think that I really actually needed that experience to transform me. So how about you, TT? I think you've got an interesting journey.
Yeah, it is a very talking about being open and vulnerable. I've been single for about almost 2 years now, and I think we sort of preluded to it in the last podcast episode, but not long after I broke up with my ex-partner, unfortunately we lost him to depression. It is something that as I think about now, it doesn't really affect me the same way anymore. I think I've reached a point in my grieving journey now where I have accepted, the decision that he made. This is something that was difficult because it took me a while to, I worked with different therapists to come to a point to understand that regardless of what the outcome, it was a choice that he made, and I have to respect that. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, doesn't mean that it's not difficult, but I think in a way it gave him that sort of agency that he made a choice. But since then, I guess I, went on a pretty big spiritual journey, so similar to KP. I think his passing was a catalyst for me to delve so much deeper into who I am.
Yeah.
And I also want to make sure that before I get into the next relationship, that I learn how to love myself and how to relate healthily to people around me. And that include things like working on self-esteem, self-worth, working on expressing myself emotionally. That's a whole different topic that we can talk about. But interestingly, I actually met my last two boyfriends through the apps. So
It's just the way it is
It is
now.
the way it is.
Yeah.
I think that it's so like I feel like I missed the first wave of it. So the adoption of it has been a bit slow. Like I think that it is pretty much the way it is now.
Can I just also say, TT, in terms of your journey, I love that, you know, you went through that self-discovery and that was what made you go and, you know, go to therapy and work on yourself and understand yourself better. But we talked about this last week. KP, just because something significant has happened to TT, it's made her go. It doesn't mean you have to have something significant happen for you to work on yourself. I mean, it doesn't have to be therapy. It could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really, you know, important point about understanding yourself and, you know, holistically, you got to love yourself before you're able to go out there and really date and love other people.
Yeah.
And
agree.
I read this quote a while ago. I can't remember where it was from, but it was something along the line of the best thing that you can do for me in a relationship is for you to continue working on yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, now I think about my future relationships. Well, hopefully I'll find someone, you know, who I would love to spend a lot of time with, and we would love to support each other through the journey of life. One thing that I want to promise to myself is not to ever stop working on myself and stop, you know, really calling myself out on all of my own bullshit. Yeah.
We can call you out on your bullshit.
Yeah, you do. Anyway, so, thanks.
One of my yoga teachers actually said to me once when we were doing like philosophy, like a chapter on philosophy, she said that dating is actually the best way to actually learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
What you like, what you don't like, what pushes your buttons, how you can pretty much stabilize your emotions, like what makes you go off the rails. Yeah, it's a good way to actually just learn more about
100%.
yourself.
Yeah.
Can I ask you both to do something on your next date? Maybe write it down, journal after the date.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How you felt and how you, instead of you criticizing them on why, you know, the date didn't go well, do it the other way around.
Yeah. So the book that I'm reading, Logan Uri's book on how to not die alone, she actually talks about the mindset of dating. She said instead of focusing on your date or your partner's negatives, said come away from that date listing 5 things you liked about that person. Like, for example, number 1 has great hair, or number 2 said thank you to the waiter. Number 3 drove me home. Like, so focus. She says to focus on like those positives rather than focusing on the negatives of the person. So that's actually a really good tip. Maybe put it into practice.
Yeah, maybe. Well, why don't you try this? Do both. Focus on, like, write, you know, 5 things you really liked about your date, but also then 5 things on what you did that you really liked too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then you're then getting to know yourself and how you date and your own behaviors and how you come across.
Yeah. And I guess just to round out this part of the podcast today, I think 2 points that we touched on. And, you know, the first thing is you don't have to be completely healed from your emotional traumas or your past to relate to someone. As KP said, like, when you're relating to someone, whether you're dating someone casually, you're seeing someone you're starting to date again after like a really big breakup, you start to learn more about yourself and you start to see the bullshit that you have to deal with within yourself as well. And then, you know, hopefully every time, you know, not to say that you should just go out and date people all the time, because it's also very emotionally taxing. Because every time you see someone for like a month, 2 months, and then you decide to like go separate ways, it's also like a mini breakup, right? So it takes a lot of emotional toll on you. But at the same time, you don't want to be in that like self-healing bubble forever. And you don't need to feel like you're 100% ready to take that next step to go on a date with someone or to have a conversation with a cute, hot guy at the bar, right?
That's totally relatable for me.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like we also went super deep there. So let's flip it. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next topic, which is all about using the dating apps, but how are you actually meeting people outside of the dating apps? Any new experiences that you might have had recently? And I'm going to go to TT.
Thanks for picking on me. Well, I actually took a year or so off dating after my last relationship because, of course, like it was a pretty, I would say traumatizing experience. But recently in the last like month or so, well, actually I was sort of like on and off the apps for a little bit early in the year. And then recently I went back on to Bumble. And yeah, I'm not sure. It just, this time around, it just didn't feel right. Like, I used to have no qualm about like dating people on the apps, but now like I feel like as you become older, you just know what you want, and you just don't want to deal with like time wasters or bullshit anymore.
So I have a really interesting way of looking at it, given I've been, as you guys all know, I've been in sales for 12 years. Look at it from a lead qualification.
Yeah, 100%.
If you got no time to waste, then you're not going to spend the time to take them through the sales process, right?
Exactly.
So qualify in, qualify out.
Well, all I'm saying is I don't want to qualify everyone. I don't want to qualify all inbound leads. But like
that's why you got to qualify them out quickly.
Like exactly what I was doing with I remember I told you about Mr. NRL, right? So
oh my god, I love Mr. NRL.
He is busy. He works in private equity. He doesn't really have time to like have proper dates. And one time he was like, hey, would love to take you out on a date, but my favorite NRL game team is playing tonight. Would you like to come out to the pub and like we can have a drink and then watch the game, and then maybe to go to Charlie Parker, which is a really nice cocktail bar in Paddington. I was like, no thank you, like I don't want to be like the side event. If you're going to see me, it's going to be
after party.
It's going to be the main event. I don't want to be the after party.
Yeah. You had to fit into his life, his schedule.
So I just said no to that, and
I've got a surprise for you. We actually got him on the phone right now.
I do feel that there are like, especially like guys that are busy, they're more trying to find someone that'll fit into their life. And I think that actually might work for some women. Like that's totally what they want. But that feeling of not being the priority.
And I think for us as well as as our listeners and ourselves, like we were corporate career driven people, and we're also busy, exploring life, social, friends, fitness, fitting in so many things. And I think what we're looking for is like an equal partnership rather than me trying to fit into someone else's schedule. But the other thing that I think we need to also talk about as well is meeting people organically, right, through hobbies and things like that, because one of the good ways to maybe find people that are like-minded is to show up at activities or hobbies where you think people who are similar to you in terms of life stage or lifestyle might be hanging out at.
That's a good segue actually. KP, why don't you talk about what happened last night?
I think this is almost like a story of you need to the benefits of having a really great wing woman or wingman. Like I think go out with someone that's maybe already in a relationship. Well, that's who I went out with last night. Who is the other thing is like, I think if you want to meet people organically, you need to tell your friends specifically that you want help to...
Yeah, like do you have any good people you can introduce me to, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like otherwise, like you want to put that like front of mind in front of your friends so that they help you. But yeah, like I went out with my friend for a night out, and we were just... I think I've adopted TT's mindset like these last years around like being open-minded and just having fun and seeing where it goes rather than being so closed off and being in your own bubble. So we were just at a bar and then there are three guys next to us who were also ordering not cocktails at a cocktail bar, but ordering like top shelf like whiskey, which is what caught our attention, and they just kept looking over at us, and then
Next minute.
they started talking to us, and then like my friend was like, yeah, she was just being a wing woman, and she was like, hey, my friend's single, like like you guys, what are you guys up to tonight? Like it's just that, and then it's as simple as that, and that's how you meet people organically, and that hasn't happened to me for a while because of the apps.
Yeah. Can I just say as well, Jules, remember just even a few weeks ago, KP was telling us about the golf incident.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
You need to tell.
Can you tell us that story? Tell everyone the story,
buddy. And you see a shift in energy there too.
Yeah. But like, so I golf in my spare time as well. I picked that up during COVID, but I used to play a lot as a child with my dad. It was just a thing that I did with my dad, and so I picked that up during COVID, and I'm taking it very seriously. Like I want to be at the Commonwealth Games in 2032. But like I'm playing golf, and then I'm practicing in practice bay, and a guy just comes up to me randomly and actually says that he's about to tee off in like 15 minutes, and whether he can
hint
take my bay. And I think that my mindset at that time was that this guy is like encroaching on my serious practice time. So I remember being so mad, but I was like, okay, I get it.
He even tried to make small talk with you.
Yeah, so he did try to make small talk, but I think that my mindset was just so like I didn't really, I think because I was in that mindset, I didn't really look at potentially what
she didn't even see him.
No, I really didn't.
She can't remember what he looked like, nothing. And I'm like, you just didn't give a shit that day. You were not interested, and that's the energy we talk about. Is this fuck off energy?
Yeah,
I'm doing my thing. Leave me alone. So we've seen already that shift in the last couple of weeks in you, which is great.
I'm so proud of you, KP.
Thanks.
So proud.
But like one of the things, maybe a tip for our listeners also is that like one of my guy friends said to, when I told him this story, he was like, yeah, like one thing is to not the gym, and well, you may disagree, but gym or something, when like if a person is doing something with an intention, that's probably not the best place to hit on someone when they're trying to achieve.
Right time, right place.
Right time, right place. So maybe it was that, but I agree. I think that I definitely am less like narrow-minded with it.
We are also trying to teach us all to flirt a little bit better. So regardless of what energy you have, just flirt. Just no worries, I've got 5 minutes, give me a moment.
And I think the flirting thing is very interesting, right? Because if you think about like your life, and you think about like, you know, that mantra we talked about in episode 1 around, you know, fun, being like, you know, having fun, and, you know, having fun experiences. You know, when you go out and about and like you're in live, you just, you know, flirt with anything and everyone.
not anything. Okay. Not anything, okay.
Everyone.
Anything.
Because it's just fun. Like you're open, and you're like having great conversations with people, and you're just leaving a bit of that like positive impact on someone's life. And you know, back to the point about building a life that you love, it doesn't have to be just flirting with a potential partner or someone you see as you know, someone you want to date, but also people at the coffee shop, people who serve you food. You know, it doesn't hurt to be nice to people.
I think it's just manners. It's just manners and being respectful to everyone around you, right?
But that attitude of flirting with life, right? It's just having that openness wherever you go and whoever you meet. So I think we've talked about dating apps, right? We talk about going to places where you think you meet like-minded people. So golf could be a really good example. I know through surfing, I have met a bunch of people. Not to say that I want to date them, but I also feel like that's a really good way to build a community around you. And it's back to the point of, you know, love doesn't have to be just a romantic partner. It could be like love for the community of people around you and your own life as well. So yeah, maybe you like to do some salsa or clay or golf or whatever it is.
Go to the library.
Just go where your energy feels great.
That might be where you meet your nerd.
The nerd.
Henry Cavill.
Hey, he's mine.
Oh, sorry.
Probably at a Warhammer event.
So
the other thing is there's also meetup groups and networking. It doesn't always have to be, interest in particular activities and things like that. Just kind of try and think outside the box a little bit about things that you enjoy doing and where you would go. So if you're interested in, I don't know, some career talk or tennis talk or whatever topic, there's a whole bunch of meetup groups that happen all over the city. Go to those events.
Yeah.
Make a friend.
Yeah.
Which could lead to a romantic friend. Who knows?
And again, being open to new experiences. I recently went with a friend to one of her friends' birthday. I didn't know anyone there. I just showed up because I thought, well, it seems like a pretty cool event. I just want to show up and see what happens. And I ended up connecting with someone who, it's been a while since I actually met someone IRL that I feel like I have a really strong connection with. And who knows where it's my goal. But, again, it's just...
Can I clear something up for the oldies like me? IRL, in real life.
So that's a millennial talk and boomer talk.
I told you I'm on the cusp, so I'll do the translation.
But also if it's like the dating apps as well, like not meeting people in real life, but on dating apps, I feel like I think TT, you said it to me once, like with dating apps, to be intentional and to move from texting to meeting up quickly. Otherwise, you might end up with a pen pal rather than a soulmate.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And look, there's so many different ways that you can meet people. I think we've given you a lot of various different activities and ideas and ways to think outside the box. Maybe we'll move on to our next topic that we want to cover off.
Yeah.
TT, can you talk about some of the key things on what you're now looking for? How do you decide what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Do you have essentially a list of criteria in your head when you go on a date? Maybe it's top 3 that you tick off, or talk us through the process.
Wow, this is a very tough one. And I think the older you get, I think when you're in university, right? Like meeting someone, getting along well, you're doing a bunch of fun stuff together, and that might just be it. And you decide that you want to be together. But when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, it's becoming a bit more complicated, because at the life stage where you're at, you're already missing out on a bunch of time with someone. And you're also looking forward to the next chapter where you're like, well, I do want to settle down, have kids, have a family, but you also don't want to rush into it as well, right? Like you need a few years to get to know someone, because it's a big decision to commit to someone for a long, long time. So I guess I talked about this with one of my therapists before, and yes, I have multiple. We talked about like the idea of being specific, but also not to the point where they have to tick like all 10 of my boxes, because you never find that person.
Yeah.
But it's good to go in with a bit of an idea as to these are my top qualities I'm looking for, and then leave room to explore the person. And to have experiences together, so you can see how they show up for you and how they show up as a person in the context of other people as well. And I'm like, we talked about this recently as well, but when you're in your 30s, dating is sometimes quite scary, because you're like, ooh, like I see like something about the person I don't like. Maybe I should just like quickly leave and just, not give them a second chance. But also that's potentially self-sabotaging, because you don't want to get too close to the person. So first thing that I probably want to call out is to be specific about some of the qualities that you want to have, But then don't be so caught up in it that you
Yeah.
can't even see the person for who they are and try to put them in boxes.
Yeah, like identifying what is actually the difference between actual deal breaker or what is actually something you just would like to have in the individual.
Yeah.
I think that like my perspective on that has actually really changed, like from when I was like in my earlier or mid 20s to now. I think when you're a bit more established in your 20s and 30s, like I think that the glass shattering moment for me was like I'm less focused on the status of the individual. I don't necessarily need those like patriarchal concepts of like the man must provide for you, like because I'm fully self-sufficient myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm less focused on him needing to have a specific job or earn a specific amount. But hey, that's me.
Yeah.
It might be a deal breaker for you though.
Yeah, and I think it's fair, right? Like
Yeah.
some people, like I, for example, recently have thought a lot about children and, you know, what I want to be like when I'm a mum. And, you know, one of the things that is important to me now is when I have children, I want to be able to enjoy them.
Yeah.
And for that to happen, I might need to take a year, 2 years of work when I have children.
Yeah.
So I can spend time with them and be there for them and also enjoy that time and not just be like sandwiched between work and,
Yeah.
you know, raising children. But, you know, like talking about specific characteristics as well is also important, I think, to be the person that you want your partner to be first, if that makes sense. So like the qualities that you're looking for in someone, you know, it's good to also sit down and ask yourself the question, like, am I modeling those characteristics? Can I be that for myself before I ask someone else to do that?
To be that.
Because you attract like the same sort of energy or qualities, right? So yeah, that's another point I think that relates back to our previous episodes about getting clear on your intentions and what make you tick, and you know, deal with some of the insecurities and traumas that you accumulated in the past, so then you don't walk into a new relationship with huge baggage.
Yeah. And and in terms of being specific about your criteria, it's not specifics like he must be 6 foot and taller, right?
Yeah, because we talked about this, right?
I
Like,
think we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably also our criteria from when we were a lot younger.
I think so.
Yeah.
And also being a shorty, I'm 5'4". I definitely want the father of my children to be taller than me. But having said that, I think we, like, you know,
You're limiting yourself to all the amazing
Exactly.
5'9"
I
men
know.
out there.
Yeah, that's true. Like, you can't, not everyone is 6 foot and above.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, kids grow these days, right? They drink, you know, my mum always says they drink Australian milk, and that's why they
Yeah.
grow.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Yeah, I think as you become older, then you realize some of the characteristics that you used to think that are so important, not so much anymore. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I've definitely learnt that over the years it's become a lot more less superficial
Yeah.
for me. I remember when I was probably in my teens, I always looked at men's shoes. If they had
Oh.
nice shoes, I'm like, and then I'll look up.
Oh.
And so
You're looking down
Interesting.
there.
yeah, because I just had a thing for shoes. Like if they could dress well
How funny.
from the bottom up, I'm like, wow, okay.
But
Then I look
yeah,
at their
it
face.
does say something about a person, right? Like whether they actually pay attention to details, whether they are, you know, finessed, whatever.
It does, because you know, do you want someone that is well dressed? And if they're well dressed, does it mean they're in a particular type of career? And do they behave in a particular way? Right? If you think, I don't know, I've been watching a lot of that Lux Listening stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're all really well dressed, but at the same time, the person that is
energy,
wearing the suit also comes out in the way that they dress too. So for me, whether people are into dress sense or not, I use it as a almost an anchor on the type of person that they might be. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing as well is the mindset, right? When it comes to dating. And I know it's so scary being in your 30s and starting to date again, because you feel like you have to make a decision quickly and you have to move quickly. But I think it's just the abundant mindset of if it's if it's not going to be this person, there will always be another person, and I will eventually end up with the right person, and I will eventually get all the things I've always desired, whether it's marriage, it's kids, or maybe it's just that I want to move overseas and I just want to, have a companion in life rather than having something committed. So I think that mindset is very important. That's something I'm trying to work on.
The maximizer mindset. There's always, and I think that's the thing with apps, is because it's so available now. You're like, oh, what if the next swipe I'm gonna find someone that's gonna be better, and I think that is risking not seeing the person in front of you.
That is so true. But hey, we have here Mama Jules.
Hello.
She's our big sister, but also very wise when it
love
comes
guru.
to dating.
I love guru.
So I'm actually curious to see, out of all the things that we talked about today, what will be some of your practical tips?
Should we use up a whole episode all for my practical tips? I've got so many.
That could be a spin-off.
Modern love part 2.
I know. Well, I'm going to start off with one of, I guess, my mantras as well is never settle. Because if you're in a relationship with someone, and even if there's an inkling of unhappiness that you can't work through, don't settle. Because just because you're older, just because you think, hey, there's the body clock, for me, I think, who cares? Why settle and be unhappy?
That fear of not being able to maybe find someone better, or fear of leaving.
Fear of loneliness. There's so many different fears that people have, but it's important to not settle.
One of my previous managers said something to me a while ago, and it resonates so much these days, is that in life, all you have is choices. So, again, like similar to what we said in previous episodes, is having that confidence that you can back yourself if you need to walk away from a situation, a relationship, that you'll be okay.
Especially if it's toxic, right? Because at the end of the day, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, don't be desperate. Okay? You know why? And you laugh, but you actually behave that way, and it comes up in how you react and how you respond. It's interesting. People don't realize that they look desperate when you say, hey, you look desperate. You can tell by their facial expression.
Have you said that to someone before?
I mean, I would never say that to someone because I think it's pretty harsh. But think about it, because if you're desperate, then you're probably going to get guys that probably don't want anything serious. They know what they're there for, and it's like going back to UKP and about the universe having your back, right? Is if you put out desperate energy, you're gonna get silly guys, if I'm honest.
Anyway. And just, I think it's also, right, like trying to remember that life is so expansive, and back in the day, women had to rely on having a family, being part of, a family to survive, right? But now that's not the case anymore. And life can start at 35, 40, 45.
Oh, you see people that I watched, I think it was your recommendation actually, TT. I was watching Modern Love, and it was about
it's so beautiful,
an older lady, an older lady that was dating. She's in her 60s, 70s, and she's putting herself out there again, and it's a completely different mentality, right? Because she's had someone pass away, so now she's like, okay, how do I get back in there and find love again?
Relate.
Tip number 3, always think about the date. What do I mean? Where are you going? Where are you meeting? There's nothing worse, and TT just told us that story about the NRL guy.
Do not settle.
He did not think about the date. Oh, come, I have this game, and come hang out with me and just plonk yourself there while I watch a game that I'm really interested in. No, the focus is gone. Think about the date. Think about where you're taking the girl or the guy. Think about the scenario. Is it going to be a casual place? Is it going to be a drinks place? Is it going to be romantic? Do you want to sit somewhere cute? And I actually learned this from my partner, because he does this, and he took us to Charlie Parker's and
Charlie Parker's getting a lot
It is, I
faster.
know. Charlie Parker's is the place to be. But he also took me to Zephyr that night to watch the sunset.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he thought about the night.
Yeah, I think that that also just demonstrate that you put effort
Yes.
into it. And I think that that is such an attractive quality in someone, is that you know that they put thought and effort into the date, which kind of shows that they're prioritizing you and your time.
And that's a great point. And we talked about really briefly feminine energy, right? And I think as a woman, you can just tune in to yourself and ask yourself, does that make me feel good? Because I don't want to be taken to a pub and watch NRL, whereas, there are so many guys out there, and, there were guys who organized a full date and, offer to pick me up or like pay for it or whatever. And I'm not saying, again, is whatever that floats your boat, right? Not saying a lot of women would just be like, nah, I can take care of myself. I don't want you to pay for me and just split it.
But you might be a pub girl and that works for you.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But it doesn't work for someone else.
Yeah, but again, ask yourself, does that feel good for me? Because if it doesn't, then you should say no and, set some boundaries around what feels good. And, if it doesn't feel good or if it doesn't, as I said, if it's not fun, then don't do it,
Which probably is a good segue into my next tip is don't have too many expectations. And when I say that, I mean, what you were referring to, KP, about your ex-boyfriend is you've got this vision of how your relationship is going to go. Same thing with dates, how the date's going to go. He's going to be the one. He's so hot, whatever. Yeah. He could be the hottest guy ever. And you go on this date and you might have been texting really well, but there's no vibe.
Yeah.
What do? You kind of just maybe have a nice date and leave it at that, right? I mean, Personally, I don't waste my time. I've gone on a date for half an hour before in the past where I genuinely just didn't vibe with the guy and I just said, hey, look, I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste yours. So let's just part ways.
It's so important to not ghost people as well.
Ghosting is bad.
I recently went on 2 dates with this physio guy. He was very kind, very nice. We got along well on so many different levels, but for some reason we just didn't really connect emotionally. And so I thought, I'll just send him a text and let him know, right?
Yeah.
And he actually texts back and say, hey, I couldn't quite figure out what it was either. Such a shame. But we just left it as that. And I think that was a nice way of just closing it out rather than leaving people hanging.
Absolutely. I think ghosting is almost, if you are the ghoster, it's more, you end up feeling bad as well.
Can I just say it's a case-by-case basis, says one who's ghosted someone before here.
Right, okay.
And the reason why I say that is because if someone is a little bit crazy and they go on one date with you and then they expect the world and it's like, whoa, and then you've said no multiple times, sometimes there is no other option and you feel bad and you didn't want to do that, but guys, if you're listening out there, is just, if you don't vibe, don't be desperate.
Yeah, don't try to force
Don't try
it.
too hard, right? It should be organic and it should be easy. That's how
Yeah.
the yin and yang should essentially go.
Is there any more tips?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Are you? Okay. I don't know. I got
aim
heaps.
for-
I got
yeah.
heaps because I've been
Great
writing
words.
them down as they come along when I'm talking to you guys. But I hate relating it back to sales. I really do. But it's somewhat true. If you think about the sales process, it's qualifying leads, it's pipeline generation, and it's closing a deal for those people that aren't in sales. However, if you think about it as dating, you get those serial daters, which I was one of those people once upon a time, where I was just converting leads. It was like I would chat to them for a couple of days, go out on a date, because you won't be able to distinguish whether you'll vibe or not until you meet
them in person.
So get it out of the way quickly, because as you guys both have said, if you keep texting, you're going to have a pen pal. You're not in prison. You're not in prison, okay?
So I've been told also is that focus less on getting on those first dates, but think about how you're going to get a second date as well. So if you vibe with them,
Yes.
so like the intention shouldn't necessarily be I'm gonna go on first date. It should be like I'm gonna look for someone I can go on the next date with.
Yeah, and
That's the
this
mindset.
goes back to my other tip about not having expectations,
Yeah.
right? Is if you vibe, then you move on to the next
Yeah.
stage. And you could have multiple people, and that's fine. It's just part of life and how you're figuring out things. But also, the other thing is, don't self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Just don't sit there and wallow in your what ifs, because there's nothing worse than your brain. Our brain is actually super powerful.
Yeah.
And
but also could be your biggest enemy.
exactly. So don't wallow. Just go with the flow. Don't expect too much. And if it happens, it happens. It should be easy.
Yeah.
And then the other last tip is when you're single and a guy is flirting with you, and it goes back to our fuck off energy we're talking about, recognize the game and play the game.
Play the field.
Play the game. Because if you're the no gal, then that's the energy that you're giving out to the universe. Then you automatically become the no gal. So when you go out, you've got that energy. No one's going to approach you because you look unapproachable, right? You want to walk into the room and kind of command the room in a way, and put it out there.
Channel your goddess energy.
Yeah.
And be that fun person or whatever your characteristics are. Be you. It'll come. I mean, they're just my top tips that I can think of for now, but I've got loads.
Yeah.
I
Great.
love that. I love those tips.
Great nuggets of gold there. I think if we can just summarize it in a few key things, be open to flirting, not just with guys or girls, but also with life.
And yourself.
And yourself. Look after yourself, right? Like take yourself out on dates and have like a hot bath. Don't sabotage yourself. Be clear as to your intentions, what you're looking at, and what you're looking for, but also don't put people in boxes because life doesn't happen that way. And just have that sort of fun, not abandoned, but abundant mindset. You don't want to abandon anyone, but, just having that fun and, expansive mindset of I'm going to meet new people and, it might or might not work out, but I give it a chance and I have fun.
It's meant to be fun. Okay, so for those of you out there who get anxiety thinking about it, can't even get motivated to do it, this is one tip I gave to my girlfriends. I said, if you are scared of being lonely, staying in the house all day means you meet nobody. So you're actually self-sabotaging it and doing it to yourself. So, right?
You can't expect to just be at home all the time and
Yeah.
well, you can be on couch swiping. You might meet people.
You're not
that way,
Rapunzel.
but-
Calm down.
Do you have any tips then for those that might feel like they're too busy with work? It's all consuming.
KP.
Like this week for me.
You just have to make time. You really do. Because you're making time for you and your future, if that's what you want, right?
Wise. Very wise.
So it just like your work, you carve out time to, I don't know, to meet with people at work and have these meetings and talk about whatever you talk about. Same thing with yourself. You carve out time to go to yoga.
Yeah.
You carve out time to date.
You're never too busy for things that are
You
important.
really want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
good advice.
the thing as well, the trap that we fall into is, especially after COVID, I feel like life is full on. Like so many events, activities, social gatherings. And so you sometimes have to push back and say, well, maybe this weekend is about me time and, getting some leads lined up on the apps or like going to a party and, meet someone. But,
Yeah, if that's too much pressure, that time might be, for example, hey, it's Wednesday night. I'm going to carve out this evening for me. That's it.
And saying no to work meetings, right?
Yeah.
I actually had a really interesting conversation with my manager yesterday over lunch catch up. And he was like, where you're at with your journey and your job and things like that. And I said to him, you know what? I think it's time for me to also prioritize dating and thinking about what's next for my life stages. And he was like, yeah, I understand that. And I said to him, it's also my responsibility as well, because I know that I can get quite excited about work sometimes and I'll sign up to go to all these networking events. But at some point you need to say, well, enough is enough, and what I've done so far has gotten me here, but the next step will have to be different.
And there's nothing I can say or anyone can
Yeah.
say that will make somebody do something. It really is a self-starter, and you have to want it and you have to do it. Until that day comes, you'll know when it's time.
When you're ready.
When you're ready, you'll know, right? So if you're not motivated, it's fine. Wallow in your unmotivated state, but there'll be one day where you go, you know what? I'm ready. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there.
Wow.
And so do your thing.
You know what? I feel like this episode has given me a sense of hope. You know, a sense of like life is great and this is fun, and you know, you shouldn't let your timeline sort of restrict you, and just go and explore.
Hope you've enjoyed today's episode on modern love and dating, and that you walk away with some thinking points and some tips on how you view your love journey. If you've liked today's episode, please leave a comment on our socials, like and subscribe, and we will see you next week. You're listening to
Let's take it offline.